everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody enjoyed time with their families yesterday. I like to call it a day of gratitude. So happy day of gratitude. So we're going to start tonight with what we're calling the Blackout Live conversations. They are conversations that we hope to, by sharing our experiences, our opinions, our thoughts, our feelings with you on a live platform and having you join in the conversation as well. It'll aid in the continued evolution of our hearts and healing and maybe inspiring you to have these conversations with the people in your lives that you need to have conversations with. We hope to carry these conversations forward to the retreat that Sherry and I are planning April 29th, 2022 through May 1st. If you have not heard about it or read about it yet, there is a flyer with details that is on my page and Sherry's page as well. Sherry is the partner that I will be working with hosting the retreat. And Travis and Kim will also be there, and I'll let everybody introduce themselves and tell you who they are and what they'll be doing at the retreat. Kim, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Kim. I am a certified group fitness instructor. I'm also certified as a Zumba instructor. And at the retreat, I will be teaching an awesome Zumba class, so you do not want to miss that. So hope to see you there. Passing the mic to
me. Hi, I'm Travis, Sherry's husband. I don't know. Sherry's gonna have me be a gopher, I think. I'll probably be running around doing whatever she tells me to do. Yeah, no, I think I'm also gonna talk about meditation a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll probably end up doing one as well. So it'll probably be like a little bit of a dialogue. I wouldn't call it a class, just a little conversation about it, and then we'll probably get into it a little bit.
Excited for that.
Yes. My name is Sherry. I'm a therapist, and I guess we're going to be doing a lot of different things at the retreat: mindfulness, meditation, writing, some creative writing. But the main, I guess, point for me is to kind of introduce how you can do mental health and therapeutic work in a fun and creative way. It doesn't have to be kind of floaty or stuck up. It doesn't have to be traditional. It doesn't have to be laying on someone's couch talking. It can be all kinds of things. And so we want to showcase how mental health can be creative. It can be fun. It can be exciting. It doesn't have to be boring and stuffy. And just show different ways that we can heal our community and ourselves in that process.
Amen. I didn't even introduce myself. For those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Tisa. And I love to write and have conversations, just like we're going to have tonight. Any conversation about feelings and past experiences that have led to, my healing and sharing and hearing about other people's experiences and their own healing journey. I founded a community, We Rise, which stands for We Restore, Inspire, Support, and Empower. And you can read about that on my page as well. So let's get into it. Tonight's conversation is going to be about forgiveness, something that we all have been in need of and in need of giving. And some of us are probably still working through needing to forgive different people in our lives, including ourselves. So I'm going to start with asking Kim, what does forgiveness mean to you?
So forgiveness to me is, I would say, letting go of feelings of anger, resentment towards anyone who I feel has wronged me, who has wronged me in some kind of way that I feel was wrong, and forgiving them without having an apology. And even if I feel that they don't deserve it, but just being free. And that's what I feel like forgiving is to me, like fully forgiving.
Okay.
Just releasing that anger.
I like it. Sherry?
Me?
Yeah.
So for me, I think forgiveness is understanding. I think it's a daily journey. I don't personally think that there's a one and done for forgiveness. I think it's like you might have forgiven someone and been okay in one season, and the next season you're thinking about it and you're upset again. So I look at it as sort of a journey, but a journey of understanding. Because I do think the more you understand yourself and others, you can kind of forgive them. Because a big part of it is understanding. I think people are doing their best, but it doesn't mean that their best is adequate to us. So I think it's also acceptance a bit, like accepting the reality of circumstances. I think that kind of aids the forgiving process.
Mm-hmm.
Why you look at me? It's my turn?
Yeah.
Hmm. I guess I don't want to be long-winded, but I don't know how to really answer this short. So I guess I think about the Bible. It says love holds no record of when it's been wrong. So I guess I think about forgiveness being something similar to that. It also makes me think of the fundamental attribution error in psychology, where we attribute other people's behavior to their character, but we excuse our behavior as separate from ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So then, if I think about that with forgiveness and then also not keeping record, I think that you can tell the Bible was tying into that same psychological concept of not attributing or keeping record or holding stuff against people. And it's almost like the stickiness of people's behavior. We leave it on them as label. And I think forgiveness to me is when I can realize that that's what I'm doing and then begin the work to see myself in that person. Even if I can't see myself in the specific transgression, but to see myself in the error, to see myself make a mistake, to see myself hurting people. And then from that journey of trying to make myself look like my assailant or whoever's done wrong to me, I think as soon as I can start to get us on the same level as far as love, then it all kind of at least begins the process of forgiveness for me.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. I think for me, forgiveness is a process. I think sometimes you may feel or have said that you have forgiven somebody, often to find that you haven't fully processed what you need to process to fully let go and release and relieve someone of their error, or even ourselves of an error. So I definitely feel like it's a continual process. I do believe that it's acceptance. It's letting go of, I also believe it's letting go of a story that we tell ourselves assigned to the action of another person. It is unclenching your fist around the pain that you feel, that you still hold on to, and letting go of that, and grace, an abundance of grace. I was going to ask what forgiveness looks like, but I think that kind of ties into what we just defined as forgiveness. So, Kim, if you will be so gracious enough to be vulnerable and share with us a time in your life where forgiveness was difficult for you, and why.
So I have one in particular that I actually forgave someone. And that was extremely hard for me because, so I found out that someone was talking about me, and I confronted the person, and they admitted to talking about me, and we didn't speak for years, like years. And a family member was telling me to be the bigger person, forgive. And I'm like, why do I have to forgive if I wasn't the one to cause the wrongdoing, to cause us to not talk for years? I don't remember how many years it was, but I didn't want to. And after a lot of pushing, I was like, okay. And there was no apologies. We never talked about it. It was like, you need a ride home? And that's kind of how I started. I took the person home and, we're back to where we were, but just it was hard for me because I didn't want to, because I felt like I didn't do anything wrong. So why do I need to forgive this person? And they admitted to what they did. So that in itself was hard for me, because I won't say I'm not a forgiving person, but it's just hard for me to forgive someone knowing that I have not never got an apology or anything. But we back to what our regular scheduled program. But I mean, it was hard for me because it was almost like a betrayal. Well, it was a betrayal. And to forgive someone, that's hard. Like, I still struggle with forgiving people that has done me wrong. So
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
Has it changed any behaviors for you towards the person?
Not any in the beginning, yeah, because it was almost like I don't know, it was weird. Like, after the ride home, it was like maybe like a couple phone calls, like, what you doing? It was like weird. But eventually, I don't know if somebody else might have been talking to that person saying, hey, they might have been saying the same thing to that person to talk to me, but I was very mean. I was mean to the person for a while. And it took me a while to get back on track. But now we're like this again.
Nice.
I don't think about it. Like, how some people say, I forgive you, I'll never forget. But I kind of forgot about it. I don't, because the person's like family. So I don't want to like dwell on it. So I don't even think about it anymore. Even when I see the person, I don't be like, side-eyeing, like, no, it's nothing like that. So that's the only person I've really, truly forgiven besides myself.
I resonate with the that anger piece. I know for me, I have learned that's a clear indication that I have not fully forgiven someone and worked through the forgiving of someone, is when I still have hardness in my heart towards them.
Yeah.
For me, it's a real difference between setting a boundary, the way I feel and treat someone when I need to set a boundary, versus when I have hardness in my heart, right? It's almost like I still feel like I either want to make them inadvertently pay for something or change something, as if they could go back and change something, right? I think part of forgiveness is understanding we can't change the past, and that's a difficult thing to let go of, and feeling like I still need to prove something. So like, one of I think the person in my life that has been hardest for me to forgive has been my father. And people would say, or I would tell people all the time when I was younger, like, I forgave him for, my father was, is an alcoholic, and he was not a part of my life. He was inconsistent. And I had a lot of anger towards him because my mother was also an addict, and I wanted him to come save me, and he never did. He left me in the environment that I lived in, which then I experienced a lot of trauma because of that. And growing up, I would always be like, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. People would be like, you need to forgive your dad. I forgave him, I forgave him, I forgave him. But then the way I interacted with my dad, I was very aggressive with him. I still was trying to prove to my dad in adulthood that I didn't need him. And it came across as me just being very standoffish, not wanting to hear anything he had to say. Like, I was just real
like
cold.
Angry.
Huh?
I said like angry.
Yeah,
angry.
I was just real cold towards him. And I think that was a clear indication to me when someone asked me, like, are you still trying to, it seems like the little girl in you is still trying to prove something to your father. And when they said that to me, I was like, that was an eye opener for me. I was like, ooh, okay, maybe I didn't really forgive my father. I still need to work through that. So hardness of heart for me is a clear indication I still need to work through some forgiveness from someone.
So how is your interactions with him now?
I have since then, one of the things I also did in the process, which helped me to forgive my dad, is I wanted to hear his story of his upbringing, that
Yeah.
caused him to show up in the way he did as a father.
Ah,
That really allowed me trying to see my father in his story separate from his actions,
yeah,
allowed me to humanize him and see him as a man instead of my father, which I needed to
yeah,
do.
Absolutely.
And I needed it. I needed to have compassion. If I was going to fully forgive my father and change the story, I needed to understand his story and grow in compassion towards him. And I could only do that by hearing his story.
wow,
Once I did that, I was able to. Before then, I cut my father completely out of my life. I called him an alcoholic, and I was like, "Don't call me anymore." And we didn't talk for years. I didn't see him for years. He didn't see his. I have two sons. He didn't see his grandchildren. I mean, for like over 10 years. And then once I truly forgave him and continued working through, you know, the hurt surrounding that, I learned how to have him in my life and in my kid's life, but still setting boundaries, right? Because he's still very much an alcoholic. If I allow it, it will impact me. So I have him in my life, but I set a boundary so that me and my children aren't affected by his alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, that's how it's changed.
wow,
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. I think I struggle a little bit in the sense blending some of what both of you guys have said. I think that for me, it depends on the degree of the offense, right? If it's a slighter offense, it's easier for me to forgive without an apology.
Yeah.
For serious offenses, I don't think I can agree. I can forgive you in the sense like what you guys said. I'm not gonna hold any anger. I'm not gonna hold any bitterness. Not just for you, because for me, that's not a healthy. That's gonna keep me upset, angry, miserable. I don't want to live like that. But like what you said, I do think I'm gonna have firm boundaries, and it may not always be nice and friendly.
yeah,
Because it depends on, like you said, what is the safety for me? What is the understanding for the people around me? I think for me, that's an area that I know I'm still struggling in. Similar to you, Tisa, I had a very traumatic childhood. I struggle because it's not just for me what my parents did in the sense of like how we were impacted as their children. It's also how our sibling relationships were
Yeah.
impacted. And so I struggle with that also because my stepfather who molested me, my mother's still with him, and the family still brings him around. So for me, I find it kind of offensive. And I know it's like, I understand everyone has their own personal relationship with him, but I'm like, without someone having changed behavior, why would you want that around? So that bothers
Right.
me. That's where I continually will get offended. My brother just got married, the whole family was there. And I'm like, really? And I know that's just me, but I'm like, really? That's how you feel? Like, that's who you want at your wedding? But I have to understand our relationships are different. That's his father. It's not my father. It's my stepfather. So I know that's a different struggle, different relationship for him than it is for me. But I think for me, certain crimes, and I know even as a therapist, it's my trigger, certain offenses, I'm like, kind of like what you said. I can't put myself in your shoes. That's not something
yeah,
I would do. So it's hard for me to understand and therefore hard for me to fully forgive because there is that block where in my mind, I'm not going to do that. Like, no matter where things go, I can't see myself doing certain things.
Mm.
Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I think I struggle in that sense where it's just certain stuff is so offensive for me where I'm like, I'm not going to really interact with you. And I probably do lose respect for you. I can love you from afar. I'm not going to try to spit on you if I see you, but I'm not going to pick you up either necessarily if you're down. Just being honest.
Yeah, I like that. I agree. I think the deeper the pain, the longer that forgiveness process can be and the more difficult it is. Like
Yeah.
you might punch me in my eye and I'll forgive you faster than breaking my heart. I say that.
Yes, yes. I agree. Like
yeah.
I
physical
don't
pain
know,
is
yo.
much easier than emotional. I don't know.
They all equal to me.
There's points to it because I feel like there's a hard line. There's hard sometimes to separate the physical from the emotional because a lot of times the person doing physical is also doing emotional and psychological. But I do believe that the physical wounds heal a lot faster and sooner than the mental and the psychological and emotional wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes that's what makes it hard to forgive too. And we're not necessarily operating in a vacuum. So it's not like we're moving in a world where now we're just everything is okay. We're still constantly being triggered by some of those things.
Yes.
So I think that makes it further difficult to forgive, because it's like, okay, if I could just sit in a perfect utopic society, I can forgive. But I still got to go out and get re-triggered by those things. Or like you said, interact with these members, kind of try not to hold it against them. If you haven't changed behavior, that means ongoing, if I don't set boundaries, is going to be triggering and upsetting. And then
Yes.
we're upset and affected by it. So you do have to do what's best for your mental at the end of the day. And not everyone's always going to understand what those boundaries are. I know a lot of times boundaries that I set, I struggled with the concept of forgiveness, especially from a religious perspective, because people who didn't even know my story would tell me, but that's your mother. But that's your
Right.
mother. But you got to forgive your mother. And it would take me into these cycles of depression, because I would try to forgive her and I would try to let her back in and try to reduce my boundaries and again get hurt. And at some point, I'm like, listen, a spade is a spade is a spade. I'm not saying she can't change, but in her behaviors towards me, if it's consistently impacting me, I do have to set a boundary that's going to be what's best for me. I think that's hard because no one else can tell you quite what forgiveness looks like for you and what your boundary should be and how that should look. And I think that can be challenging, because we'll say, well, I still interact with so-and-so. I don't know the level of offense that he did or she did or whatever happened with you, but you can't now necessarily expect someone else to match that same level. And I think that's also hard in family, because now it's sort of like, well, we're a family, so what you do and I do, it should look the same. Not necessarily. Or friendship, any kind of in group, I think it can be challenging because we want everyone to respond the same way we do. I lost a friend similarly because when she stopped being friends with someone, she expected me to. I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do, so I didn't. But that looks like in some people's groups, disloyal.
Yeah.
It's an understanding that I have to operate in a way that makes sense to me. I got to sleep at night with myself. At the end of the day, if nobody else, I got to sleep by myself. So I feel like that's one of the things that I'll try to operate with for sure. Like even with regards to forgiveness, doing what I think is best, but also, like you said, Tisa, grace for them and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I can't try to force myself to forgive you tonight.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I think sometimes that's more toxic.
Forcing yourself? Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
You gotta do it when you're ready.
Yeah. Which is why I understand, like you said, you listen to your friends and family, but there also has to be that respect of like, okay, but I got to do it in my process and in my time, in my way.
Mm-hmm. It's almost as damaging as what they call false positivity. Like I was just talking to my girlfriend about this last night. Like one thing I realized that I do sometimes is force myself, I think out of fear of getting stuck at a place of a negative emotion. Because I'm an emotional person and I've worked so hard to not allow my emotions to control me, but to sit with them and to make appropriate actions outside of my emotion, I think I fear getting stuck. And I find that sometimes I force myself to process things too quickly, to let go of things too quickly when I'm not really ready to let go of them or change a perspective or feel better about it. Out of fear of getting stuck. And then I find myself, 3 months later, still upset and like kind of being re-triggered because I didn't give myself adequate time to work through what I was really feeling. I think the same thing happens when you try to force yourself to forgive somebody. The same exact thing happens.
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of? I brought up a Bible verse early too, so nobody can say I'm church bashing because I already did scripture earlier. So like now at this point I'm solid. So it makes me think of the healed concept in Christianity and church. It's such a striving. It's such a thing like healed. It's like this place that people want to arrive at, like to get past things, to come up to the altar. You know what I'm saying? Somebody lay down a major prayer, hot breath in your face Sunday morning, and by the time you leave the altar, everything's good. And the thing is, I understand the concept, so I'm not judging the desire to move through, like you said, to not be stuck. it's too many things to do, too much bills to pay for us to get stuck. I think this rat race life mixed with all the trauma and stuff we have going on creates that hurry up and get up and go. Matter of fact, if you think about a baby giraffe, and now I've gone on a tangent, please forgive me. But the baby giraffe, as soon as it hits the ground, the mom is telling it, we gotta go. Like there's no time for you to like get your legs right, get your mind right. It's like hit the ground and go because there's lions out here. There's no time. So I think if we find ourselves a little bit in that survival mindset of like, oh no, I can't stay sad, I can't stay sad. I got kids to raise, can't stay sad, got to get to work tomorrow. If we have that kind of tension surrounding our mental state, then I think of course we could end up doing damage. But that's why God's got this thing built in that eventually you will hit that wall. Okay, so there's like a fail safe built in that even when you're running from yourself, you're gonna smack into something to sit that ass down for a minute.
Yeah, agreed.
And actually, I like what both of you said because Tisa, me and you had a conversation where you told me a great strategy for how you handle that. And I think you also gave me great strategy for how you handle that concept of both giving yourself the space to kind of heal, but also kicking yourself a little bit to be like, move on. You remember that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can tell people. Tell them.
What is it?
Her strategy.
So earlier this year, I had to process some difficult emotions, and I did not. I knew it was going to be hard for me, but I told myself I allowed myself really to wallow in my sorrows. Right? I'm gonna call them wallow in my sorrows. That sounds negative. I'm gonna put it positively because it's
you
not
were in your field, and that's okay.
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
I gave myself time to be as emotional, to feel my feelings, right? To be as sad as I wanted to be, to be as angry at the person as I wanted to be angry, to not get up off my couch, right? Maybe I brushed my teeth. I don't know. I ain't really work a lot. I basically gave myself a designated time where I just felt my emotions. I cried about it. I wrote about it. I snotted about it. I was angry. I was mad. And, eventually I was like, all right, I'm gonna give myself a certain amount of time. But at that point, I got to start working through forgiveness, start working through changing the story I was telling myself, start working through the rejection that I was feeling, start going to work, right? Start going back outside and hanging out with my friends, start doing things that I knew that were going to bring me out of the negative emotions that I was feeling. So I gave myself a certain time frame and I was like, all right, at this date, you got to not get over it, but you got to start moving forward. You got to start taking the steps to move forward. So that's what I did.
That's fantastic. It's so much intentionality in it, and to be honest, that model that you just laid out, I feel like it's like the most healthy real shit because the truth of the matter is the emotions are powerful. And so like whether or not you want to give them your respect, whether or not you want to be honest with yourself about what you're feeling, they don't give a fuck. That's the thing. Sorry. I don't know if we're cussing. No,
be free. It's fine.
The emotions don't care if you acknowledge them or not. They come with their own power. And the power source that they are using is sometimes decades old. It was put in there way before you even knew that it was getting invested, getting built up, balling up and gaining power, and it can be poked and released 2 decades later. You gotta honor that and respect that thing. And that's why that's so real what you did to basically say, right now I am under the power of these very powerful objects. And so I'm gonna give them respect. I'm gonna give myself time around them, honor them, and then I'm gonna choose to move on so they don't turn into my boss. But that's fantastic. I love that.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, it doesn't control you because I feel like I like that concept spiritually, where anything that controls you is your God.
Yep.
So fear, anger.
But the way that she was basically, see, that's where it takes that honesty though, because if you don't say, hey, agony, anger, upsetness, sadness. Like if you don't point them out in the room with you and say, hey, we're about to go through this, and close your eyes to them, you give them license to jump on your back and grab you and do what you want with them for however long.
Mm-hmm.
You
You
sat
take
everybody
control.
down in the same room and said, this is what we about to do, MFs, for these next few weeks, and then we moving past it. I love it.
I think with one of the
Yes.
things you just said I love is you got to call it out, right? Like, I think part of forgiveness, even forgiveness of self, is you got to call it out. You got to call out what you feel, and you got to acknowledge that first of all, which is something I think we all have a problem with, that ego. We be like, that ain't. It's almost like you want to deny that somebody else has caused an emotion in you, and you want to seem unbothered, right?
Absolutely, man.
You don't even want to give them that level of strength, not even that much power.
Yeah,
I'm definitely that person. I could be so hurt and bothered, you ain't gonna know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think a big piece of
that's that pride to have you on your ass, though.
It's pride, but it's also his. I feel like, I know people get tired of me saying it, but I'm like, everything comes out of the conditioning mindset and colonial mindset. Like, just imagine for how long, like you said, we had to push through. We had to push through. We had to push through.
Yeah.
And if I show weakness and vulnerability, I'm now a target.
Yeah.
And I think that that's hard in our communities, because people will look at it from the outside and be like, well, there's so much anger or so much. If there's so much pain and so much distrust, then what else can I feel? What else can I do other than sort of protect myself from it? So it becomes a very guarded position, which is hard. But I think that's why you almost have to acknowledge both the biological and the social factors, because it's like, if I'm constantly in factors that are overwhelming, I'm going to feel overwhelmed. And then my behaviors are going to follow that. Right? That's not even just me.
Yeah, that's human beings.
That's just humans.
Animals.
It's just everyone. And like, so then you add on situation after situation after situation, which you have been in. It's very hard to sit here across from someone and then say, this hurt me. Because if I tell you that, you're going to do it again just to irritate me or bother me. How do I not? I grew up with little brothers. Like, that is the one thing, they're going to be like, anything you can do. Okay, you don't want me to touch you? Okay, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. Oh, Lord. They're going to push your boundaries. That's just human nature, too.
Yeah, those emotions will definitely take over and have you doing some crazy stuff if you don't address it.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How has your inability to, well, I'll say inability. How has unforgiveness of either yourself or someone else impacted your life? How did it show up, or how did it impact your life?
Well, it's made me weary of people, like new people, friends or guys that may be coming into my life. It's almost like it takes a minute to try to trust someone, because I already have my walls up. And in my mind, I'm already thinking eventually something's going to go wrong that's going to cause me to not to forgive you for something that you did. So I'll either be real standoffish with someone or curve somebody. Just the anticipation of something that's going to happen where I know you're going to F up and I'm not going to forgive you for it. So it's almost like it's messing with my trust issues. So I'd rather be like, I'm not for the BS and just not deal with no one new. So it's impacted me that kind of way, as far as trusting people. It's almost like I can only trust myself or my inner circle, or my family. New people, I'm just like, no thanks. So that's something I haven't gotten past that. So that's a current issue for me. Trust.
Yeah.
So that definitely impacts me daily.
Sherry, what are some things that so you know how we say, well, I can't forgive a person, or I'm not ready to forgive a person, or I'm working through, I don't even know where to start, right? How do you have any suggestions on how to start the process, or to change the narrative around I can't forgive?
Well, I do think it may sound weird to say, but my first step is telling clients you don't have to. Because I think we're going to resist anything when someone tells us we have to do it or you have to do this or whatever. You don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I do push understanding, right? And forgiveness is understanding, but I don't necessarily label it as forgiveness because that's going to make us resist and bottle up.
So
But once
you
we
giving
say,
something up in that sense.
yeah,
Like
exactly. If
someone
I
to give.
forgive, it's like, oh, you've gotten this power, right?
Yeah.
But it's not true. It feels like I'm giving the power away, but you're really taking your power back. Because to be honest, I always tell my clients the forgiveness isn't for them, it's for yourself. Because what you just said is, how does it manifest in my life? Well, to be honest, it manifests as depression and anxiety and not trust, all of those things. But depending on the level of the pain, it manifests as us feeling unlovable. So I tell people to forgive for that reason, right? Because it's not that you were unlovable. It's not that they didn't love you. It's that they loved you to the best of their ability, which was inadequate because they had adequate love themselves and inadequate training. So they did the best that they knew how, but it might not have been sufficient. But you have to acknowledge and accept that because that forgives yourself. Now I'm not unlovable. And it's not that there's something wrong with me or necessarily wrong with you. But see, that's why what you said, it goes both ways. In order for me to let you off the hook, I let myself off. In order to let myself off, I got to let you off. So that's where the understanding comes in, because if I'm consistently holding it over you, that's going to give you the power over me. So it is what you said, a release. It's a surrender, but I have to also be ready for that. And I think others will push you depending on their agenda, right? It's recognizing that everyone in our life has an agenda. Even me as a therapist, I have an agenda. My goal is mental health. Other people may have different agendas. Your family and friends, they love you, so they want you to heal. They want you to be healthy just like me. So what do? We push people and we rush them in that process because their pain hurts us. So we want them to be healed, but we can't. They have to be ready to heal. They have to be ready to forgive. And it's absolutely, like you said, it's okay if you're not, because that might be your part of exploring. Well, why not? What is it that you're feeling? What is the connection to not wanting to let go? Is there anger? Is there sadness? Is it feeling like you're letting them off the hook? Because a lot of times when I talk about understanding, people think I'm making excuses. It doesn't excuse their behavior. It's not saying your behavior was okay. It's not giving them a pass. It's not saying we validate or accept it. None of it. It's not. But it's identifying, why did it happen though? Why does not excuse it. It just helps us to understand it and then acknowledge, like, okay, what you said in another situation, like even when I look at my stepfather, right? Like that's the hardest person for me to forgive. Would I ever see myself doing those things? No, but I wasn't raised like him. Yeah. If I had been raised like him, could that be my reality? It could. How do I know? Because I've worked with plenty of perpetrators. And they're not necessarily, I don't see anybody stepping out to say, I want to be a perpetrator. I want to rape women. I want to beat women. Or I want to do this. They don't.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But certain things in life push them into that path. Same way certain things in life put me on this path.
Yeah.
So I think it is hard because we don't want to let them off the hook, so to speak.
Right.
I talk to you, I don't know how many times when it would come to certain things like, I don't want to say that because I don't want to give that pass.
Right.
But it's not up to me either. And that's also a part of it, right? I want people to forgive me. Do I want all the stupid things I've done or all of the embarrassing mistakes I made? Do I want them always broadcasted and now everyone to judge me for that? No.
Right.
But now I'm judging you for your worst. So that's a part of it too, is holding myself accountable. Am I perfect? No. So if I could spend all day pointing out your flaws, that doesn't change anything in my life. But once I point out my own flaws, that does change things in my life. So it's focusing on myself, going back to what you said with the fundamental attribution here. I can't change everyone else. I can change myself. So it's trying to focus on myself as much as possible and doing the self-work, noticing that once one person in the system changes, the system changes. So I can fight everyone else, which I've done, trying to argue, get you to see it the same way I do, get you to see my perspective, getting you to own your stuff. It ain't make you do none of those things.
None.
Spend years wasted fighting myself, you, trying to get it to be whatever was right. Yep. That don't make any difference. So now it's accepting. Oh, this is who you are. This is who I am. Some of this is a result of all of these things, but it don't matter. You have two choices at this point. Are you going to live life or not? And now when you make that choice, how do you want to live your life? Go ahead, Kim. You were saying for you.
I was saying for me, I think the idea of forgiving someone is not wanting them to be off the hook. Now that's my thing, because it's like, oh, you forgave me, like, oh, I'm home free now. And I'm like, no, I don't want to give them that satisfaction, even though that might not be it. I just can't do it.
And I don't think you have to let them off the hook. I'm not a believer of that at all.
I mean, I don't want them to think that.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that.
I like that idea actually, because I'd like to try to think about a way, can we have both? Like basically on the hook, like it's so broad. And I'm thinking basically we want them to be held accountable, right?
Yeah.
We don't want their record expunged, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like, so like if I say somebody did some real sick shit to, like, I don't know, somebody I love, I'm calling out the truth that the behavior is harmful, disgusting, hurtful, regrettable, like every word you want to use. I'm saying that will be true forever. That's true forever. Like the person did the dirt, they put that in the atmosphere, and that's true forever, that this is a harmful, disgusting act forever. But the thing that could change is our mental interaction with that thought, which to me has nothing to do with the person. They're not even a part of the transaction. So that's why I'm not letting them off the hook. That their behavior is on the hook. So if they think because I'm smiling now and because I don't lower my eyebrows and cuss them out, that now I'm thinking what they did is now okay, that's bullshit. Their behavior is still fucked up, but the love and the God in me is what's allowing me to bring a smile to a person who deserves for me, you know. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So,
that's a great point.
So to me, can we have both, right? Can we leave their behavior on the hook forever and let our chest and body and shoulders open up and be free flowing while we keep the truth of what that behavior did? Is like, can both of those things
I like
be true?
what you said, because I think it goes back to the fundamental attribution. We're connecting it to your identity or to our identity, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Once you connect it to your identity, is who you are, not something you did.
Right.
When we're parents. If you talk about letting a kid off the hook, so you did something wrong as my child, right? What do? I punish you. I didn't let you off the hook, but I don't spend the next 20 years punishing you for what you did when you were 15 either, right? It's like, oh, you did something, I'm upset, I might talk to you about it, I might give you a punishment, I might even have a boundary. But I think that's the challenge when we talk about childhood things specifically, or the magnitude of certain sins or certain instances that we have to forgive. When it's huge ones, it's hard because we keep replaying it.
Yeah.
And we keep replaying it. So it's no longer just you did something. This is who you are. This is who you are. And that's why we feel like it's letting you off the hook. I don't want to deal with someone like that, but that may not be who you are. And that's where, when I was talking to you about Kim, about did you change your behaviors towards the person? Sometimes you need to, right? If you change, like you said with your father, I need to have certain things in place ongoing.
Yeah.
Because you have not adjusted yet. If you have adjusted yet, maybe I'm in a space to open up new opportunities that open the door further or interact with you in a deeper way than before. But that's also going to be, it takes both people.
Yeah.
So there's work that I have to do, but there's also going to be work that you have to do for full forgiveness. Like when we're talking about full forgiveness, there's a part that you have to do. Because if you haven't changed your behaviors, if you're still talking about me behind my back, or you're blasting my business to others, I'm not going to start telling you my business. We might be cool. We might go hang out. Exactly. But am I going to keep my secrets with you or tell you something? No.
Exactly.
Not necessarily.
Right.
So it kind of depends.
And that's wisdom, right? That's wisdom. And that, like, for instance, one part we have been conflating a little bit is restoration of the relationship and forgiveness. Those things can be completely separate.
Yeah.
That's completely up to us how we feel as to if I want to speak to the person ever again. I feel like you can forgive a person and never talk to them again.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. And sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah.
But at what point is it considered like holding a grudge?
Right.
Cool. I think you were the one who helped me to release like those labels, because what I've learned, and I think we all kind of see it, is when people give you that label, it's usually we all have an agenda, right? So when you say that I'm judging you, what does that mean? Because we all judge. If I tell you, Kim, you look cute today, you're not like, why are you judging me? Because
Right.
that's a compliment. It felt good. So it's like, oh, girl, yeah, like, of course. Same way when, oh, I like your car. No one's upset with these judgments. We're only upset when someone is saying we don't want to hear. Something we don't want to hear, now it's a judgment. Maybe you needed to hear it. Maybe you didn't like it. So that's why I think it's always being fully convinced in your own. Like, if I'm comfortable, that's why I said, if I can sleep at night, I can't live based on what you're saying, because you're going to always push me to push my boundaries. You're going to always want me to adjust my boundaries in a way that's comfortable for you. You're going to want them. The kids are going to want them. Everybody wants me to adjust my boundaries in a way that's comfortable for them. Also, this is where we get, I guess, mixed up. You're not wrong for that. He has an agenda as my husband. The kids have their agenda as their kids. Everyone has a different idea. It's up to me to withhold my boundaries. Like, he get upset when people push them, but that's sort of human nature, right? So it's up to us to say, this is what we feel, this is what we think, this is where we're standing. And if you don't respect that, then we do have to eliminate either further boundaries, or now we can't communicate, and they're going to be upset. So they're going to say things, oh, you're petty, this is judgmental, you're still holding on to it. Well, guess what? I don't got to hold on to it if you let it go, or if you would adjust it, or if you did certain things. So it's not that one side or the other gets to control the conversation or the dialogue, but flip it back on them. If someone walked into the room and slapped your mother in the face, how long would you hold on to that?
Forever.
Exactly, right? So that's another thing I've realized. When people are offended, they don't care what you think and feel. Like, oh, I'm judgy, I don't care. Yep, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to do. So the same person who's coming to you oftentimes telling you you're being too harsh or too this or too that, if the roles were reversed, you couldn't tell them nothing. You're not going to hold them down from doing what they thought was best in that moment. So a lot of times that helps me to see too. It's not that you don't see the truth, it's that you don't want me to acknowledge it in this moment, or you don't want to stand in it in this moment. So it's not that I'm necessarily doing something so ridiculous. I'm doing something you don't like.
Yeah, that's true. A grudge from the outside, they call it a grudge. We might call it boundaries.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're like, oh, because it's not like how it was before. You holding a grudge. You're not hanging out with me. You're not giving me all the access I used to have prior to the incident. Yeah, motherfucker. That's what I'm saying. That's the point. What are you talking about?
It's called discernment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's a good point. Like, if I got a family member who got sticky fingers and shit go missing every time I have him in the house, I might not be like, hey, I won't text you on your birthday no more, but on the next family gathering, you can't come in my house, nigga. Like, you can't go in my house. You stole shit 3 years straight. Like, it don't mean I hate you or you're a disgusting thief or whatever, but wisdom will tell me I can't let this person have this level of access in my life based on past behavior. That's common sense.
I like what you said, because that takes me back to Kim when you said trust issues. I don't like the term because I don't think you have issues. I think you have common sense, right? If 9 out of 10 times X happened, on the 10th time, I'm going to assume X is going to happen. Right. Somebody else will say, oh, you have trust issues. Well, if I've gone through trauma after trauma after trauma, I would be silly to trust people, right? But also, that's what society or others want. Trust me. You're not supposed to trust people willy-nilly. I'm not supposed to walk in and never have had a relationship with you, and we're just telling everything and just doing, like, that's not proper boundaries either. Trust is something that has to be built and developed and established over time. A lot of times when people want you to trust them too soon, that's narcissistic and other versions of toxic behaviors. You don't really want to get involved with those people either. Like, why would you want me to be your best friend day one? I don't know nothing about you. You don't know you really don't know who I am and what I'm capable of.
Yeah.
So I'm supposed to trust you? That's silly. But that's what people want, because that benefits them. And that's also naive on the other hand. So that's why I said terminology gets messy, because on one hand, we'll be like, oh, you have trust issues. But on the other hand, if you did it, they'll be like, oh, that was so naive. Or why would you do that? And that's why everyone's always going to have something to say. For you, it's like, what makes sense to me? Based on my experience, that's all I can go on. Based on my experiences, based on knowledge, research, processing with people, this is what makes sense. Someone's going to say, oh, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense. Look at the presidency. No matter what you choose to do, someone's going to have something to say about it.
All the time.
All day, every day. So if I know it makes sense to me, and then it also helps to have those therapeutic relationships. For us, we kind of check in with each other. What do you think about this? What do you think you feel? Because now you know you have other like-minded people where sometimes I'm tripping. Sometimes I'm emotional. I know I'm gonna feel some type of way, and I hold a grudge. Initially, it's gonna take me some while to get over those emotions. And while I'm in my emotional state, I'm not hearing logic. I'm just being honest. And depending on how triggered I am, I know I'm a firecracker. You better watch out if I'm in that state. Give me a wide breath until I calm down. Once those emotions come down, then you can kind of operate from a more logical perspective or position. That's something I had to realize. Like you said, I got to let myself feel those things. If I try to stifle them, it's still going to come out, but it's going to be more detrimental. So it's even giving myself the space. Like I might need to back away from people so I can express the emotions out because they're so strong and maybe so heavy and sometimes violent. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with anger. There's nothing wrong with violence. It's where do I direct it?
Right.
If I don't like, that's why I love the intentionality of you guys' techniques, because if I'm doing it with intentionality, I'm managing when I'm releasing the poison, right? Because we're all gonna have poison. But if I don't, that's when we talk about things like toxic, because now we're releasing it everywhere we go on everybody because there's no management of it.
Yeah.
It's just wherever we go, we're leaking.
Yeah.
Sherry, I like that. You just said something that I was like, wow, I do that. And I don't even think I realized that that's the reason why I do it. Y'all, you know, we talk about boundaries. I talk about boundaries all the time, right? Which we'll be talking about. We'll be having a whole nother topic on boundaries in the upcoming weeks. But when I am emotional about something, or still need to work through forgiveness of myself and my choices, or forgiveness of another person, or maybe I'm just angry at a person, or you know, still hurt, or whatever the case may be. When my emotions are still high, I tend to set my boundaries really high with a person. I'm like, because I don't want to operate in emotion and do the wrong thing that I know is out of alignment with who I am as a person. Boundaries real high, like
Wisdom,
real high,
absolutely.
and it's not until I have and I'm okay with that, right? I need that, and you don't have to like it, right? But you're gonna respect it, right? You don't have to like it, but you're gonna respect it. You don't have a choice. But once I have worked through my emotions, right, and my processing, and then I have the, you know, if I think it's worth, if I like the person and the relationship is worth restoring, I then will bring my boundaries back down to a level where it's not a wall, right? It's a fence, right?
Get over it.
Because you can work your way back, but also, and this is what I think is important when we talk about the accountability. Yes, you can work yourself back in, but depending on your work, right? So like you just said, so, oh, you told me you're sorry. You think it's back to square one because you told me that? You said word? Okay, no. But once your actions start showing me, I can start making some reductions. And that is wisdom because it also still keeps you safe a little bit, right? So like if you do something, I can also extend them back. If I let you all the way back in, you haven't really shown that you're going to respect that boundary, which means you're not. You're going to fall over that. We're going to be in this process again. People think it sounds harsh, but it's not because it's love. This is what it takes to maintain the distance of our relationship, boundaries, communication, all of these things. If we don't, we are going to fall out. We're going to operate with unforgiveness and all of these other things. So it actually is the loving thing. And I also think it's reframing how we see those words, love, forgiveness, all of that. Right. Love does not always mean warm and fuzzy. The fact that I did not cuss you out was forgiveness. The fact that you're still here sometimes is forgiveness. I'm not trying to fight you every time I see you. People are trying to push you sometimes to get into that place, like you were saying before, where like there's no anger, there's no nothing. Like we just said, it's grace. So we're still works in progress. I'm not going to be on zero level of forgiveness today.
Right.
Even maybe for 5 years or 10 years. It's going to be dependent for everybody. So I think it's just allowing yourself the space to kind of heal in your own terms and your time. Because like you said, forcing it makes it worse.
Right.
We actually stay trapped in those emotions longer as opposed to that awareness part. So that you guys are saying that's the key, the intentionality, the awareness. Now I'm doing whatever I'm doing with intention. I can deal with anything. Most anything that you choose to do in that moment is almost cool for me because you've made a choice. Versus when things are overwhelming you and now this is feeling like it's controlling you, that's when I'm more concerned.
Right. All right, y'all. We count. I gotta say, in order to save this live, I gotta cut off by a certain time.
Okay.
We got like 4 minutes left. Travis, can you talk about forgiveness of self? Like, how has you needing to forgive yourself played into your ability to forgive other people?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's a good one. Carl Jung is famous for talking about the shadow and the dark parts of ourselves that we don't like to look at too often. Whether that be insecurities or anger issues or self-harm, or I hear an echo. Am I good? Y'all hear me good?
There's a little echo, but you're fine.
All right. Um, so I think for me, when I start to realize that I'm a human, I think I had myself separate before as an individual, separate from all other humans on the planet. And whereas now I'll allow myself to have a bad day. I'll allow myself to be off as a dad, to not hit the standard at 100% all the time and have shit together all the time.
Love that.
So when I start to allow myself to have bad days, it lowered the standard for the world around me. I'm like, well, this is exactly what the fuck we're all doing. So when I got rid of that standard that I was holding myself to, it allowed that standard to drop off for everybody I encountered.
That's good.
It built your capacity for grace.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great way to say it. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right. We got a minute left. Any last words? Anybody?
I'm good. Hey, are y'all using y'all front facing cameras?
Yeah, why?
Clear as hell, man.
Oh.
Looks good.
Oh,
Thank you.
I thought I was gonna say something like we shouldn't.
Oh no, it looks good. It looks good.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna have thank y'all for joining. Thanks everybody who's gonna watch this video on playback. We're not only having these conversations for ourselves, but we're having them for you too. We hope that you get something out of these conversations. Again, check out the flyer on my page about the retreat, the Blackout 2022, and we're gonna be having another conversation in 2 weeks. That topic is going to be love and respect. So hope you guys can join us then. Thank you, Sherry, Travis, and Kim.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Wait, how you cut it off?
I don't know. I'm gonna figure it out.
I think just closing it out.
Oh, yeah, I got it.